Do you want 2021 to be the year where you become the most extraordinary you possible? Stay tuned for this episode of Spirit Lift. Before we get started, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be informed when we post new content and to help expand our message to others. Thank you very much. In this episode of Spirit Lift, I have the pleasure to speak with Joy Cook, life strategist and success coach, who will give us valuable insight into how we can create a reset going into 2021, framing the way of life that we truly desire. Joy, absolute pleasure to have you on this episode of Spirit Lift. Thank you.
I'm excited to be here.
It's such a pleasure to speak to you today, Joy. And, we're ending this year of 2020. What a year it's been for many reasons. But you and I have had the privilege to speak to each other before starting this episode. And I think that you can absolutely give our viewers and our listeners on our podcast platform just a valuable insight into what this year, 2020, has been, to really go in with a clear framing of how special we are, how important it is we embrace life to the fullest, and what it can mean if we really take on life for the amazingness it is, despite having gone through a year that's been really complicated. So, Joey, before we get started, can you please tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about what your work comprises of and why you decided to get into the work you do?
Sure. So I am Joy. I'm from Washington, D.C. And what I do is I'm a life strategist and success coach. And really, I kind of like been working on this reframing of being the reset coach. And really what that means, a coach is what I do, but more importantly, it's also literally who I am. Like, it's embedded into the fibers of my being. And for so long, I really didn't know what this gift that I had, what it was, how to articulate it, what it meant, how to use it. So professionally, I've been educated and I worked as an accountant and in business operations for over 20 years. And there I had this kind of void of wanting to do something and having this thing inside of me, but I really didn't know how to utilize it. My life was literally changed about 10 years ago, where I went to a conference, and at that conference, I was exposed to, it was called the 10X conference, and it's with, if you ever heard, Brendan Burchard and Darren Hardy. And there were some others, but those two are two that really stuck out for me. And what they were saying, what they were sharing, I was like, this is it. Like, this is what's inside of me. And it like resonating, and something within inside of me really ignited itself. I love people. I'm a people advocate. I want to see people live greatly. I want to see people win. I want to see people happy. I want to see people really elevate and really embrace this awesome thing called life. So inspiring joy stands for inspiring the journey of you. And it's my hope that while we're all on this journey called life, that I can help bring some inspiration and help people to change and elevate their lives so they can really live fully and have whole life success by not just being ordinary, but extraordinary.
It's amazing that your name is Joy, by the way, because that fits pretty well within your line of work. Absolutely.
It's literally who I am. But can I tell you something? For a long time when I was a kid, I hated the name Joy. I resisted it because I didn't understand it. It was this thing that I had, but oftentimes we have gifts and we have these things within us that we don't understand until we live life a little bit more, until we open ourselves up to places where we can really get understanding and wisdom and embrace our true purpose and why we're here and what that means and how that contributes to this thing called life. And it wasn't until I went through my own process of some dark places, some places of struggle, some places of my stepping stone, my bridge that bridged me from who I was to who I am, that I really began to understand. I didn't embrace joy before because I didn't understand it. But can I tell you, when I understood like who I am, and like joy is just wasn't a name that I was given at birth, but it literally was who I was meant to be in this world. The whole like life and world began to open up, and it all began to align itself. And now I fully walk into my purpose.
Was there a moment when you went from that particular realization, because obviously when we go through life, we're never going to avoid what we would perceive as difficult situations or challenges or obstructions. But when did that kind of moment click with you? Was there a particular event where, it's like, I am comfortable and happy and embrace who I am, and I'm going to apply it to an actual way of like a lifestyle of living, or a profession, or, just giving to others to help them become their best selves? Like when was there like a pivotal moment when that happened?
So yes and no. So the pivotal moment that was kind of like the shift, but the shift did not really take place until years later, right? But I think it was a accumulation of a lot of moments. I believe that we are given so many signs and so many deposits within our journey that gives us everything to put in our backpack for what we're meant to be. And we don't realize it when we're going through the journey. We don't realize, why did I pick up that stick? Or why did I pick up that rock? Or why did I learn this lesson? Or why did I did that? But we put it in our backpack. And as we're going along on our journey, we accumulate all these things until we get to our space. And when we get to our space, we can begin to take out all the stuff from our backpack, and we begin to build the tent. And then we begin to build the fireplace, and we have our food, and we have everything that we need. But it's all based on everything that we picked up along the way that helps us to understand where our spot is. And for me, that was an accumulation of a lot of moments, but a lot of those moments came from the obstacles, came from the challenges, came from the dark times, the hard times. And it wasn't until I started to I knew that there was something more. Like there, as we go through life, there are things within us that signifies there's something else to do. There's something else that we can do. There's something else to contribute. But often we don't because we're afraid to. But when we learn to embrace those moments, like I just realized that there was something more that I needed. So I began to expose myself to reading, to personal development, to growth, to conferences, to expanding, to asking more questions. And really the most important, but probably the most difficult thing that a person can ever do is get to know yourself. I literally went through moments where I had to break down all of this that I had carried in my backpack, to put it down, to get to know me, and to embrace all of my imperfections, to embrace all of my mistakes, to also forgive myself for all of the times that I didn't honor myself, or I judged myself, or I created these limits and beliefs about myself. And once I went through that process, again, that's not an easy process to go through when you really get to know you, because you're also not getting to know your awesome parts. You're also getting to know your messy parts too. Mm-hmm. So really being in that place where you go through, that was some of the pivotal moments. Again, it was an accumulation. And then once you start doing, confidence doesn't come by saying, I want to be confident today. I'm going to wake up and today I'm going to be confident. No, confidence comes when you take action, when you start to do a thing, when you're actually working in a thing. So I started to give. I started to be generous about how I shared this experience that I had with myself that I wanted others to also have. And the more that I embraced that, the more that I shared, the more that I gave, the more that I opened, the more I was able to receive. And then all of it just aligned. And here I am.
Joy, it's incredible that those different elements of what you're speaking about, as far as, again, like having that self-awareness, really having that recognition of these processes and these things that unfold in our life. And when you're speaking about this, it sounds to me that this journey of really diving in and kind of self-exploring, being self-aware, and really discovering the awesomeness of what each and every one of us individually really is and can be a part of this amazing world if we truly embrace that. It sounds to me it does require work.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's kind of bizarre to say that, but the thing is, like, I don't think none of this seems like it will just fall on our laps and voila, serendipity. It's anything that is really worth it in life, and based on what you're saying and your experiences and where things go, it does require work. It is effort, right?
That's work.
Like we can't just assume that life is just going to smack us with this beautiful blanket of incredibleness all of a sudden, right? It just we have to make it. We have to, knowing ourselves does require work, right? I mean,
it's magical, right? But it's magical after the work is done, right? Like the magic doesn't take place before. The magic takes place in the process and afterwards. So there is literally, you have to take action, and action is one of the things. And so action, and in addition to action, something else that's also important is consistency, right? You have to be consistent. There's this article that I read not too long ago. I can't remember the name of the article, but it said 99% of people stop when they're 25% in, right?
That's so sad.
They've done. And 99% of people stop when they're 50% in, right? If people would just not stop and continue the action, continue the work, continue the consistency, it's in the extra mile that it happens, right? It's in the next step when you don't give up. So it's so important that when you're doing the work, you don't give up because you don't see the results like that, right? It's a process. We were talking about earlier about when you plant a seed, the fruit doesn't produce when you plant the seed. You have to put in work in order for it to kind of produce. When there is a baby being born, the baby just doesn't automatically come out. It takes a whole 9 months for this baby to grow, this human to kind of come into the world. So it takes work, it takes effort, it takes consistency, it takes awareness, it takes a lot of things. And that's where I wish that more people would find more commitment to the work, like in those moments.
Let me ask you, with the work you do in helping people in the way you're doing in your line of profession now, is how can you explain a little bit how is, with the way you do work with people, how is it like when you first meet them and speak to them at the beginning, and then how is there like a follow-up process with them as far as like keeping them going on the right track, after they speak to you? How does that all play out?
Yeah, so how it works with me is I am a huge believer, and one of my top values is connection, right? And there's a difference between contacts and connection, and I hold space for people. So when people come and they're interested in learning more about coaching with me, they're interested in learning more about how to really elevate their lives and really create the life that they want, they start out with us having a conversation. And us having a conversation is literally that moment is all that matters. Like I'm holding that space for them in that moment. We share and we dialogue, and I really just create that connection of sharing and dialogue, understanding where they are, understanding their understandings and interpretations up to this point, and how I can or can't like add value, what's best for them in that moment. So really kind of being in that space. After that call is made, after that call takes place, if someone is interested in continuing to work with me, basically kind of how we work is just we create a plan, a strategy that makes sense. It's about not just having goals, but when you have goals, you have to have a plan. And when you have a plan, you have to have action. And when you have action, you have to have accountability. So really creating this space. But most clients that I work with, they literally probably never go away. Like I may not work with them. Like we may have say, okay, we're going to work with each other for this amount of time. This is going to be the amount of time that we are going to focus on this goal or this action or this result. And that's going to be it. However, when you connect with someone, it doesn't go away. I'm going to always, and it's just who I am, I'm going to always reach out, whether that's once a year, whether that's 3 months later, whether that's 2 weeks later, to say, hey, just checking on you. Like that connection, it's almost like when these stars align, like when they align and once that part is over, it just doesn't break. Like when a star happens, it bursts open and then it creates more stars, right? So when the connection takes place, it only creates more connection. So I don't really think that ever stops. No. Not with me.
No, well, that's good. And for all our viewers and our listeners, towards the end of our conversation, Joy will mention where she can connect with you if you're interested and you'd like to connect with her. But, I would really encourage you right now as we're speaking to, if you really set your new life's path, if you really think it needs a good reset and just discovering who you are, to really just think about this and reach out to Joy going into your new year for sure. And
something you just I'm sorry. Something you just said about the reset, right? So that's my thing, like reset. That's my kind of focus for 2021 with coaching and with like dealing with sharing information and adding value. The most important thing about the reset is doing something again and doing it differently.
Yeah.
And how this came about is as my type of attachment to this next level for me and for my clients is 2020 has been something that no one has experienced. No one had experience in dealing with all that we've dealt with, from being at a place where all of these people were getting infected with COVID and not knowing how their body was a response, the deaths that happened, the shutdown, and the being in this space where you can't go out and you can't move and you can't be with people, you work different, you're in a new space, you're virtual, you're all of this that took place in 2020 was literally one of the most major moments that we have experienced in history. And is nothing like the past, because the past we didn't have all of this technology and all of this stuff going on that we have. So this is literally something new and a change for every single person. The reset comes is it's happened. We can't go back and change 2020. We can't try to go back to normal because normal no longer exists. But what we can do is reset, figure out everything we can learn from 2020, figure out all the things we learned about ourselves, figure out what we really want and how we really want to show up in life going forward, and how we can take all of these pieces to the puzzle and put it together to create how we want life to be, how we want to show up, and how we want to put in place our next steps going forward. And the other part is a reset is always appropriate, right? People want to reset when they have a birthday. There's a new year, new things coming. You reset when you have heartbreak or when you have new love. You reset when you have a new job or when you lose a job. You reset when you move or when this happens. Resets are always taking place, but how can we be intentional about when the reset happens to put in those things strategically in place to create what we want?
That's so important. And what the clients you have worked with in these, in your line of work, what, not to call anybody out, but what is like, what is a consistent situation or a consistent maybe kind of doubt that people have about themselves that you see more common than not? So the reason I'm bringing that up is going into next year, like, again, like relating to what you were saying before, there seems to be this heavy burden, so many issues that have gone on in 2020, and probably they were perpetuated with existing issues that were already going on in people's lives. But what's a common thing that you've seen with people that you've worked with that seem to always be something that can never shake off or never get off their back, whether it has to do with forgiving people or letting a certain thing go or whatever it is? But what is the commonality that you see that it seems that we all have that we just can't get rid of to really embrace how amazing we are?
So, something that's very common is oftentimes clients come to me for a variety of different reasons. So as a life strategist coach, I work with life. So whether that's working with your well-being, whether that's working with your relationships, whether that's working with your business or your career, whether that's working in your health and wellness, your finances, or anything like that. So people come to me for different reasons. However, whatever the reason that they come to me, there's always, literally always, this moment of helping clients to realize the awesomeness that's within inside of them, and how they haven't really embraced self, how they haven't really tapped into like those feelings of, I know I want the same thing I said, I know I want something more, I just don't know what it is, or feeling stuck, or feeling empty, or feeling like there's challenges, or feeling like there's the weight of the world on their shoulders, like really coming into a space of understanding that wherever you are, it's okay. Whatever you're going through, it's fine. And whatever that is, you're not alone. Like literally, you're not alone, and you don't have to be alone. One thing that's most important is I hold space for each of my clients when I'm with them in that moment. So when we're working together, they're not alone. So I'm helping them to strategize and navigate through their journey so they can get the strength and they can get the inspiration and they can get the action plan to really become stronger and to grow and to really kind of face those things. So one of the things that's really a commonality is people really understanding that I really have the ability to become extraordinary. Like that's probably like, and then not just the ability to become extraordinary, but really implementing things in their lives to actually make that the reality.
And it's good to maybe have big goals. Absolutely. I think everyone has a big goal, but do you find it as well that it's really the small things that we do each and every day that are the building blocks to that?
It's the small things that matter, right? It's the small things that really add to the big things. So when a plane is flying in the air, a plane can have a destination and they have their little compass and meter of how they go. And so they're flying. If that plane literally shifts very small, just a couple of inches, they're going to end up in a totally different place, only with this small adjustment, right, to the nose of the plane. The small adjustment, it puts them somewhere totally different. So it's those small things that really make the difference, not the big destination, but the small adjustments that we make in our lives that begin to spiral and they begin to change the big things or move us closer to the bigger goal.
Joy, what is it that, how important is our environment as well? How conducive do we have to make it to I mean, we could, sometimes they say like a Buddhist in Times Square could be as happy as in his monastery in Tibet. I don't know, but but what how important in general is our environment for us to be able to complement who we are versus our surroundings, in your opinion?
So when we talk about environment, I'm going to break this out into two different places, two different descriptors of environment. So there's the environment of our space, and let's call that environment, our space, is really the energy, right? It's really the energy that's around us. And then the other part of our environment is our circle, right? Our circle, the people we're connected to. These are both very, very, very vital parts in every person's journey, where the environment that you create is not really about the space or how big the room is or the size of the room or where you are, but the environment of the energy that's around you. Like, you have to be in tune and aware of the energy that takes you. There's something within coaching that I work through, which is called core energy leadership, or your energy leadership kind of energy, and that is anabolic energy as well as catabolic energy. And anabolic energy is things that build up. Catabolic energy is destructive things. So being aware of the energy in your environment, no matter where you are, there's different things that'll take you up, and there's other things that'll spiral you down. So one, being aware of that, and a shift in things that may shift, whether that be the color of your walls can make a difference, whether that be you having a live plant or some greenery in your space can make a difference, whether that's the music that you have playing or the lighting, whether it's a white light or a blue light or whatever, all of that makes a difference. The other part that's very important, your circle of influence, the people,
right?
The people that you're around and that you connect with literally are either going to be the people that help make you or the people that add to breaking you. And being aware of the energy, if you're around people who don't have the same values or morals of you, or who are not ambitious or don't have the same vigor as you. And that, just for clarity, that doesn't mean you need to be around all the same people. You need a variety of people around you, but being aware of the environments that you're in. When you're around someone who is hopeful, someone who is full of positive energy, someone who is caring and have gratitude and kindness and love, that's going to take you to a different place than if you're around someone who's negative, who's complaining, who's an air sucker, who's a dream killer. Like, that literally takes you to a place where it's like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that, or maybe I shouldn't do this, or maybe I can't do this. And it puts so much limitations on us versus being aware of the energy, the people, and all of the things that are inclusive in our environment that takes us and elevates us. It's about evolving. Does your environment help you to evolve?
And that's so important, and I can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want that. Or again, going back to this idea, we have to put in the effort for that to happen. It's just not going to happen automatically. We have to be the ones who want the change that we want to see, right? Who want the happiness that we want to have, and it's not,
Absolutely, but one of the biggest struggles that take place though is most people want to do better. Most people want to excel. Most people want to grow. But guess what keeps them stuck?
Themselves.
They're afraid.
They're afraid, yeah, themselves.
They're afraid of something different. They're afraid of change. They're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of doing something different because they've never done it before. It's in those moments of breaking through that fear of, well, if I do this, then what? If I do change, then what? Sometimes worrying about other people, what other people think or how other people feel stands in the way, or feeling like I've been in this environment all of my life. And something just popped in for me is oftentimes people get accustomed to their dysfunction. Whatever their dysfunction is, they get accustomed to their dysfunction, and their dysfunction becomes their norm. So they're like, this is normal to me. Like I don't see a problem with it because this is how it's always been. I want to share a story if I can real quick.
Absolutely.
So there's this story about this family, and the family is there for a holiday dinner. And there are like 5 generations of women in the kitchen. Not, they can be men too. I'm not going to make this like gender, but there's 5 generations of people in the kitchen that are cooking this dinner. And this little girl who's, let's say she's about 10 years old. Her mom tells her to get the pot for the pot roast because they're about to cook the pot roast. She's like, we have to cut the ends off. So she says, Mommy, why are we cutting the ends off the pot roast? She was like, I don't know. That's how Grandma did it. So she goes to Grandma. She said, you got to ask your grandma. She go to Grandma and say, Grandma, why are we cutting the ends off the pot roast? She was like, that's how Nana always did it. So she goes to Nana and says, Nana, why are we cutting the ends off the pot roast? And she was like, Big Mama used to do it like that all the time. So Big Mama's in the kitchen, in the living room, because she's older now, right? She's been around for a long time. She's older. So little girl goes to Big Mama. She says, Big Mama, why does everybody cut off the ends of the pot roast? She says, I don't know why they did it, but I did it because I didn't have pots big enough to fit the pot roast. So we're often in environments where we're doing things because that's just how it's always been done, versus doing things and being willing to change or ask the question, why do we do things this way? And is it serving us best? Now, when you think about that story, they didn't cut off like part of the pot roast that was actually good, right?
Yeah,
right. And it's like, you have to get to a place where you start asking yourself questions. And the most important question, why?
Yeah.
Why is this? Why are we doing this like this? Why am I like this? What is some of the things that's attached to this? And when you begin to question or begin to try to get more understanding about yourself, about life, about your environment, about the choices you make and why you make them, you get more awareness of places where you can grow, more awareness of places where you can really create that space for yourself where you really thrive.
That's so important what you're saying, Joy. And that story is really, that the moral of the story is absolutely important for, I think, just anyone really going into next year and just every day hereafter, and just realizing that spending time with you, everything starts with and ends with you, no matter how you experience life. That's what we got to know. I think really, like, listening to you and just being inspired by everything that you and I have spoken about today is like, that's it, really. You know, we have to know how amazing we are. We have to know, and we don't have to analytically understand that as much as just really feel that, right? We have to, because look, we live in very different times, let's say, compared to the 90s. You know, I kind of, sometimes when I speak to people, I'm like, oh, the 90s, I mean, that's kind of where I spent, had my childhood. But the thing is, my point is, technology a little bit these days kind of, I feel, my own perception, in a way, not dumbs us down, but numbs us, numb, N-U-M-B. Numbs us down to the feelings of ourselves, because it depends how we use it, though, right? Technology can be a great tool for connecting us. That's how I met you, and this is, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, sometimes I feel, and I've seen it, and I think most people have, that people are driving themselves and their identity and self-worth through interactions that maybe are not necessary or are counterintuitive against everything that we're talking about now. Is like, why can't we just go sit alone and read something, or just be with ourselves and just realize what we are, and then share that, right?
Yeah, we're too hyper stimulated, right? And so something that we kind of discussed, especially, I understand, like the 90s, things were different, where the way of working, we still had house phones, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to talk to a friend, you had to literally pick up the phone and call. There wasn't this texting, or when pagers came in, like you just sent the signal, but someone still had to call you. Or like, video games, you did not, and though technology is great, but we have these ebbs and flows of everything that we deal with in life has its ebbs and flows, where we had more human connection, more human interaction. We had more awareness that we actually exist versus being sucked into the abyss of the blue light, right? Like,
that's right.
Like, and it's different. It's different when, I think we were talking about earlier of, there is something different that you get where right now we're very kind of text heavy, where we're texting and we're DMing, and we're missing this, right? The energy of this exchange of conversation, of being able to dialogue and being able to hold space for people and connecting with people on levels that happens outside of technology.
Yeah.
Like and I think we have to do a better job of finding balance with technology. It almost hurts my heart sometimes when I go out to eat, when we could go out to eat, right? Go out to eat and I see people at dinner and the human interaction is sucked out because this little device that's in people's hands, and they're not talking to each other and they're not engaging with each other because they're stuck in between this device that's stopping that human interaction. One of our human needs, like as a human, we need interaction. If a baby is born and the baby doesn't get touched, doesn't get held, doesn't get talked to, that baby cannot literally survive without human interaction. So it's important for us, and that's as humans. And that's why sometimes maybe in 2020, we've dealt with a lot of emotions. We've dealt with a lot of feelings. We've dealt with a lot of uncertainty because we are in a space where that human interaction has been strained based on where we are. And how do you become intentional about creating space and creating that connection with others? Is you have to do the work. You have to get on a Zoom call. You have to do face-to-face. You have to pick up the phone. You can't just be stuck behind your cell phone because there's no growth in that. Yeah, it may give you some information, but what good is information if you can't apply it? 100%. What good is, what good is all of this technology if you're still alone, if you're still stuck, if you still don't know who you are as a person because you haven't even spent time with yourself? And I think that's an important thing too. We have to learn how to honor who we are as individuals. And technology puts us in a mind frame where we're always in the state of comparison of, oh no, I'm 25 and I haven't done this yet. Oh no, I'm 30 and I haven't done this yet. Oh no, I'm this and I don't have this because this person got this degree and this person became a doctor and this person is driving this car or lives in this neighborhood or whatever it is. And it's like, separate yourself from all of that, because at the end of the day, and I think the pandemic was a great opportunity for us to realize what's really important in life for you. When you're home alone, how full is your heart? How is your peace? How is your contentment with who you are as a person? And so there's, in addition to that, there's this kind of balance that has to take place with finding contentment versus complacency versus the need to keep going and keep pushing and keep growing. So I have this thing that I often say is, be at a place where your heart is full, your soul, your spirit is content, but your soul is hungry, right? Like,
that's excellent.
Yeah, like when your spirit is content, you're not just chasing to chase. But when you're hungry, your soul is hungry, it's an intentional hunger for something particular, not just anything. So like being in a place where you have contentment of, are you okay with you? Like, are you okay with your moments? And something that I often take my clients, have my clients do as an exercise is, and it's a powerful exercise of really getting to this place of knowing more about self, because you are your most important person. And then what I call it is the man in the mirror. I'm not sure if you know that song by Michael Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
The man in the mirror. So it's about the man in the mirror, and the whole purpose of this exercise is take a moment and go in your bathroom, or bathroom is probably most because it's small. Well, typically just close the door and be by yourself and literally look in the mirror, look in your eyes, like look in your own eyes, and it's just you and yourself. You have a moment where you say, whatever your name is, Joy, I hold space for you. Joy, I forgive you for failing in X, Y, and Z. I forgive you for not knowing X, Y, and Z. Joy, I know that you were lonely, or that you were hurt, or that you were disappointed with X, Y, and Z. And I forgive you for that. You are great. You are awesome. And there's so much available to and for you. And I love you. Like when you go through an experience, and there's more to it, but if you get the premise of when you go through experience of being with yourself, guess what? You know all the lies that you told yourself. You know all the truths that really lie inside. You know the things within that are places of insecurity. You know your vulnerable spots. You know, like the things that you struggle with that you haven't shared with anybody. You know your hurts and your pains. And when you hold space for yourself, and when you open up space to learn more and be accepting of all that you've been through this point, like, I love you, because if I don't love you, Joy, like you're going to continuously search for something that no one else or nothing else can ever fulfill. And it'll be this endless battle, like, but really get into that space to, you know what, you're beautiful just how you are. You have everything that you need. And it's just so powerful when you get to that space, and that's beyond technology. That's just you with you. Like, and it's amazing.
Joy, that is so powerful. And I want our viewers and listeners, as we're closing out this episode, to resonate with what Joy is saying to you right now. And to also remember, let your soul be hungry, right? Let your soul guide you into this next year, into what it is telling you to, what feels and could be right for where your life should be going. And don't force, let it happen, let it unfold, let it become. Joy, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on this episode. And I want all of our viewers and listeners to get with Joy, speak to her, connect with her, and schedule a session with her so you can really get on the life path that you deserve and that you desire and that you truly, really want deep down inside. So Joy, where can our viewers and listeners find you, connect with you, and schedule an appointment with you?
Sure. I can be reached or connected with on my website, which is inspiringjoyinc.com. I can also be reached on social media platforms at Inspiring Joy Inc. I am on Instagram and on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So on all those platforms, I can be found by Inspiring Joy Inc.
Excellent, Joy. And to all of our viewers and listeners, we're going to include all of Joy's information in the pinned comments and descriptions. And you all know where you usually find everything that we include. And please connect with her and get into your new year with whatever inside of you is telling you to go, and stay true to that. Thank you, Joy. Until next time, we will see you on Spiritual. Thank you.